Back at it again with the Mobius Dickus, chapter 85, The Fountain. So this is another interesting chapter where we have a discussion to start out with the spout of the whale. And ultimately what we go through is various different theories about how the spout works in order to keep whales breathing, what are its various functions, and there's disagreement and debate about how the spout works. And Ishmael goes through a detailed account of all the different ways that people think the spout works. And then he kind of has this interjection here where he says, why pester one with all this reasoning on the subject? Okay. And ultimately what he gets to is that it's actually kind of dangerous to worry about the spout because it's hard to see, and it can even be apparently poisonous in the anecdotes of the whalers, that if you touch the water that comes out of the spout, there's an acridness or a poisonousness of the spout. And then of course we get to this passage where once again we're going to talk about this question of knowledge, because obviously what has been frustrated here is the quest to understand the spout, which joins the legion of different questions where knowledge has been inaccessible or difficult in Moby Dick. And thus, it says, the wisest thing the investigator can do, it seems to me, is to let this deadly spout alone. Still, we can hypothesize, even if we cannot prove and establish. My hypothesis is this, that the spout is nothing but mist. And besides other reasons, to this conclusion I am impelled by considerations touching the great inherent dignity and sublimity of the sperm whale. I account him no common shallow being, inasmuch as it is an undisputed fact that he is never found on soundings or near shores. All other whales sometimes are. He is both ponderous and profound. I am convinced that from the heads of all ponderous, profound beings... So, okay, let's keep track. Premise 1, what comes from the head of the sperm whale through its spout is just water vapor. It's just mist. Okay? And premise 2, sperm whales don't swim near the shore. They swim in deep waters. Okay, now we're going to talk about premise 3, which is what is the trait of all beings that are deep. I am convinced that from the heads of all ponderous, profound beings such as Plato, Pyrrho, the devil, Jupiter, Dante, and so on, there always goes up a certain semi-visible steam while in the act of thinking deep thoughts. While composing a little treatise on eternity, I had the curiosity to place a mirror before me, and ere long saw reflected there a curious involved worming and undulation in the atmosphere over my head. The invariable moisture of my hair while plunged in deep thought, after 6 cups of hot tea in my thin shingled attic of an August noon. This seems an additional argument for the above supposition. So I think that's actually a pretty funny passage where Ishmael's explanation is because the whale is such a deep and interesting thinker, it must be very smart and it must be thinking hard like all those famous figures. And when you think hard, like mist comes off the top of your head because your brain's working so hard that it evaporates water from the atmosphere above your head and turns it into visible mist. So I think a humorous image, which is then made more serious by the next paragraph. And how nobly it raises our conceit, our understanding, our expression in writing or speech or notion of the mighty misty monster, to behold him solemnly sailing through a calm tropical sea, his vast mild head overhung by a canopy of vapor, engendered by his incommunicable contemplations. Obviously, we're seeing huge similarity to the previous chapter we talked about in the video, chapter 79, the prairie, where there's this same discussion of whether the whale is a genius or not, and how could you ever know, right? As you will sometimes see it, glorified by a rainbow, as if heaven itself had put its seal upon his thoughts. For do you see, rainbows do not visit the clear air, they only irradiate vapor. And so, through all the thick mists of the dim doubts in my mind, divine intuitions now and then shoot enkindling my fog with a heavenly ray. And for this, I thank God. For all have doubts, many deny, but doubts or denials, few along with them have intuitions. Doubts of all things earthly, and intuitions of some things heavenly. This combination makes neither believer nor infidel, but makes a man, who regards them both with equal eye. What a stunning end to this chapter. I mean, in the context of Moby Dick, with all its concerns about knowledge, it's a pretty positive and optimistic kind of reassurance by Melville that even though we've been generating all this epistemic uncertainty and all of this ambiguity around questions of knowledge, that to doubt and be unsure of things, and to combine that doubt with intuition, that feeling of something being true even if you doubt it, that doesn't make you like a hardcore believer, and it doesn't make you an infidel. It makes you a man. That perhaps what defines human beings is our willingness to live in the Venn diagram of doubt and intuition. To wonder about the spout of the whale is the most human thing to do. To know it is for gods. To not care is for animals. But to be somewhere in between is what man is all about. A pretty, I think, poetic ending to a very salient and pertinent chapter about some of the main concerns of Moby Dick. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.